Hi guys!
Hey, welcome to the very first episode of The Family Blend. We're excited that you have joined us. My name is Matt Perkins.
And I'm Kari Crain Perkins.
And we are sharing our story of loss, then finding love,
Single parenting,
blending families, 7 children. Wow, 2 girls.
5 boys.
That's a lot of kids. 3 pets.
That's scary.
That's more challenging, I think, than kids sometimes. But we're sharing our stories, some of the ups, some of the downs, and difficulties that we've had, some of the I guess, crazy things that may help you. Ultimately, our goal is to inspire you to take the next step after loss, through life, and in love.
And bring hope.
There is hope for your situation. No matter what you're facing, there's still hope. So today we're going to talk about how we even got to, like, maybe the first step, what we went through in loss and what that looked like. So we both found ourselves in 2015 as being an incredibly tragic year for both of our families. We didn't know one another. We were both living here in the Fresno, California area. If you don't know where Fresno is, hey, that's okay. I didn't know where Fresno was until a few years ago. So, and I think that's where the story starts. In 2014, my wife, Marybeth, and I and our 2 girls were living in Orlando, Florida. We were worship pastors at a great church there and ended up moving to accept a role as worship pastor in Fresno, California. Kind of scared out of my mind, going, man, we are moving into complete unknown. And leaving our friends that we had there in Orlando and moving across country. We arrive to serve at People's Church here in Fresno, California. I'm just blessed to be able to serve at some phenomenal churches. And at the same time, you and Eddie, you're serving across town at another church in Fresno. Both of them are prominent churches in that Fresno area. We didn't know one another. 2014, we arrive. December 23rd of 2014, just a few months after we moved, we find out that Marybeth has a rare form, an aggressive form of breast cancer. I don't think anything can prepare you, even though we knew that appointment was coming. I don't think we were prepared. I don't know what can prepare you for hearing those words, cancer. Sitting in that room when the doctor and the nurse leave to just give both of us a moment to process the shock. There were a lot of things going through our mind. We were thinking, how do we tell the girls? At that point, our oldest was a freshman in college, just starting her in the middle of her freshman year. Our youngest was in her freshman year of high school. So we're in new areas, new friends, and trying to figure all of those things out. We find out that she has cancer. We're trying to figure out how to tell them. We're trying to figure out how are we going to tell our family. And then in a few hours, we have to be at our first production, in our first Christmas here at the church. All of these things running through our head. We kind of regrouped ourselves and said, okay, we're going to embrace this. And so Marybeth started treatment, finished all of her chemo in July, early July, and then was supposed to have surgery the end of July, and then everything changed. We went back to the doctor to do some more tests and found out that it had spread on the 22nd of July, and 7 days later she passed away. The things that go through your mind when you're facing that loss, and I think it was crazy because we went from that Wednesday finding out that it had spread to Friday night. I was sitting there in a room with my daughters and saying, girls, we believe that God can heal Mom, but we also have to look at where things are at right now, and it's not looking like that's the way we're going. Mm-hmm. That He may heal her in a different way than what we've chosen and what we prayed for and what we would like. And so leading up into those next few days before she had passed, it was so fast, but also I'm so thankful for that week that we had, knowing that regardless of our circumstances, we're gonna stand strong. We're gonna stand strong in our faith. We're gonna stand strong as our family, and not knowing what was next, we still knew that there was hope. Your situation was different, where Marybeth we knew that she had cancer, but it still wasn't in our mind. We were going through treatment. She was going to get better, and then we find out that it's a challenge. Yeah, you're not knowing, and then a week later. Now, your situation with Eddie was way different. Mm-hmm. Talk about that and kind of that day and how all of that came about.
Yeah, well, he was getting ready to speak at our church in the adult service, kind of a family service, but it was about our up and coming, the children's building, and what that looked like, the future for children's ministry, and he was the children's pastor. So we had 4 services, and so the very first service he was speaking at, I got a phone call from his best friend who wanted to know if I was going to make it there, and I said I was on my way, and he had told me that Eddie had passed out, and it wasn't like him to be sick. It wasn't like he was a super healthy person, so I didn't have any worries to it, except when they said they called an ambulance, I thought, oh, you're going to get in trouble, because he didn't like any of that stuff. And then getting there and seeing that, he had passed out after the service, walked off the stage and basically collapsed. And they tried to revive him, but he had a heart attack, come to find out, and it was a condition that he had we didn't know about, and it's called dilated cardiomyopathy. And
because he's a healthy
yeah, he was
guy.
a runner. He worked out several days a week. He ate well. He did all of that. It just happens to sometimes there's no symptoms to it, and the very first symptom is can be the very last symptom that someone has. And for him, that was how it was. So our world changed completely in just one breath. Finding that our reality was when the doctor walks in and says there wasn't anything more that we could do. That is as if someone just punched me right in the stomach and knocked the wind out of me. Not just for me, but I remember sitting in that room with family, friends, my children, some of them, and it was like, what just happened? And so that was that day, which was November 2015, and everything was fine the night before. Our family ended up the 5 boys and Eddie and I, we spent the entire Saturday together, which is kind of rare. And I really felt like God gave us that day to spend together, and recognizing that now, that I'm thankful for that day, because we cleaned around the house, those kinds of things, but we spent time together laughing and enjoying our day. And then the next morning, our world went upside down, and it wasn't a surprise to God. He knew what was coming. And so for that, I just looked to him and said, okay, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what you're doing, but you got to take over here. You have to help me understand. And
when we walk through those circumstances, it's nothing in life prepares you for that moment when
kind of what I call the blow, the storms or those waves.
Yeah. Whether it's the doctor coming into a room and saying, there's nothing more we can do, or looking at it, being there and seeing that last breath taken. There may be situations that you're walking through in your life, and you felt like, or are feeling like, life has just dealt you that blow. Mm-hmm. That you think, how do I have the strength to even move forward? How do I have the strength to get up out of bed the next morning? And I think for me, I looked at it as, I don't have that convenience of deciding whether I want to get out of bed, because I've got 2 girls that just lost their mom, that I need to be able to provide some type of stability. And whether I need to portray that of going, girls, we got this is devastating, but try and give some type of stability, then lose it when I go to bed that night, and give myself the freedom to do that. What was that like, when you go home after leaving the hospital with that weight on you of going, what just happened?
Yeah, I mean that's you. Your drive home is long, and thankfully I wasn't driving. But just thinking, what just happened, and walking into your house that you built with your husband and your family, and you've been there for several years, and you're just like, you walk in and it looks like a completely different house. Your things are there. There's the normalcies of where you left it, even on a Sunday morning where you got children and it's crazy, and the chaos of the morning, just getting ready, and everything's still kind of in its place, but nothing looks normal anymore. And that's kind of just, I remember that feeling walking in and going, you continually just keep saying, what just happened? And it's not a doubt, it's just a reality check. You're just like, pinch yourself. Is this a dream? You kept going.
If I go to bed, I wake up, maybe this won't be there. So many times
you lay your head down and just pray. If I just close my eyes for an hour when I wake up, will he be there? Will she be there? Or whatever. And but walking in and sitting on the bed and just going, okay, I don't know what just happened, but I'm going to trust you. But I'm mad right now. I don't even know how to what emotion it was, because I like to suppress some of those feelings prior to this loss. it just containing it was easier for me to deal with at whatever was going on. And this time I couldn't. There was nothing I could do to do that. It just was overwhelming and at times. And I just sat there and I remember just thinking, okay, something like, what can I do differently? What do I, and all I really wanted to do was just crawl into bed and put my head over, my covers over my head, lay on his pillow and just do nothing, like never come out of it. I knew I needed to get up and I was going to have to keep moving forward. And that I just remember putting my hands kind of like this and going, okay, God, I don't understand what you're doing. I don't get it. I am starting to get angry and I don't want to be angry. I don't want to run from you. You've always carried us through everything that we've walked through in our life, and you got to do this now. And it's okay to say that to him. It's okay to hand it over to him. Recognizing that you're upset is okay, but allowing yourself to be able to give it to him. And so that's what I felt like I needed to do. And but I knew I had kids that were going to, most importantly, need me. It wasn't just me that lost somebody. I had myself, my children, his parents, my parents. Like we've been together since we were 16 years old, 17. It's like,
well, that's the same.
Kind of craziness.
I had Marybeth's family. They had come out, and so I had known. We met when we were 14, Marybeth and I, and so you have this all of your life. My family, had Marybeth.
There really isn't my family, your family.
Yeah, it's
you were kind of like a family.
We
like
grew
really
up
did.
together,
Yeah.
and you kind of morph into one thing. And
But for you, what was it like when? Because I don't understand like what that would be like to sit by her in your living room and say goodbye that way. Like, mine was so abrupt and I didn't really get to say goodbye.
Right.
But what was that like for you? Because I'd like to understand.
I think I remember it was a Sunday. I didn't go to church that morning. Obviously, she was very rapidly, her body was failing. And that Sunday, we had some family that were starting to get into town that I didn't know. I'm like, I don't know if I should tell you to come out or not, because I don't know what's happening, but I know that she's not doing well. And that Sunday, the girls went to church with their cousins, and I called them and said, I think you need to come home. And I said, nothing has really changed, but I just want you to be home. And I think what I had noticed of change is just her responsiveness to a lot of things. We had gone outside earlier that morning. We just kind of, I took her a little bit around the in our backyard. That was kind of her spot for doing her devotions and all of that. And the girls came home, and I told them, I said, girls, I hate to put you on the spot like this. There's nothing I can do, but the only thing that I can give to you right now is the opportunity, while Mom can understand you and you can understand Mom, for you guys to share. If there's anything you need to say it now. And so I told Brianna, our oldest, I said, hey, you're up now. I'm going to go in the other room with Alyssa, When you're done, I'll send her in. I didn't listen for what they talked about. I was having those times just through the middle of the night because we're up really 24/7 for those last number of days. I was up most of the time. And just being able to live without having regrets, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that I am thankful for. I wouldn't trade that last week. I wouldn't trade that last week for anything. There is nothing in my life that has prepared me for this. But if I don't have these conversations, it's going to be worse. Mm-hmm. I think for you, in your situation, if you're watching, maybe you've experienced loss. Maybe you're walking through where life is headed that direction for maybe your spouse, or maybe you're going through an illness that you're having to face some things. I remember that she said when we were coming back, this was our last visit to the doctor. We didn't know that was going to be the last visit, but we had a decent idea. And she was like, I don't want to die. Mm. I want to see the girls get married, have grandkids. I want all of those things. And even though she didn't want to, she was ready. And she, with her faith, I don't know, going through that time, if I'd ever seen her more at peace over those last number of months before she passed, like she was at that time. But still, nothing prepares you for having those conversations. I think what's always, and we've talked a lot about both sides. I'm like, man, I can't imagine one day not saying goodbye. Mm-hmm. What were those things that maybe played with your head of going, I didn't get to say goodbye? Or,
well, yeah, I mean, you play back what happened that morning. All our conversation was a text message that morning. And, the night before, like I said, I really truly believe that our night before was our goodbyes. That God put that time for us and our family as the goodbye. And we all reflect back on that, and I always try to remind myself that we had that. You play back things, and you're like, do you have a regret for not, whatever the situation, whatever your circumstances is, should I have done this differently? You cannot live like that, because right. You'll dig a hole, basically. Yeah. And so you kind of have to find the hope in what you had, like the nuggets of what you can, memories that you can, that you made.
There's nothing that prepares you, like I said before, but also I think in finding those situations, whatever you're looking for, you're going to find it, I think. And in your life, in your situation, whatever you're looking for, you're probably going to find it. If you're looking for all the things that went wrong and how you can say, well, how you got cheated out of life, out of time, out of quality of life as a family, seeing your family grow up, if that's what your focus is, that's what you're going to find. You're going to find a lot of frustration. You're going to stall out in life and look at, you can't move forward from that. Mm-hmm. None of this is about getting over a loss. I think one of the craziest things, if you're watching this and you've not experienced loss, or you wonder what to say or what not to say. Don't say, hey, have you gotten over it yet? Or why haven't you gotten over this? This is something that you don't get over ever.
Yeah.
Both of us sitting here today, that we are, a number of years, 3.5 years past the time of us losing our spouses, and talking about those things are emotional.
Yeah.
And
because we live it every day regardless. It is something that you take with you no matter what. It never leaves you. And that's the misconceptions of grief. It's like, oh, you're over your grief. You don't ever get over grief. You continually, daily have those moments. And but you have to choose.
Right.
You have to choose to move forward and bring it with you, but in a healthy way. And that can be difficult for people to comprehend.
Well, and that's the saying, if you look for the difficult things, if you look for all the ways that you got cheated, you'll find it. If you look for the opportunities that you have, I remember I went on a trip with a friend of mine, and we went to Alaska, and he had asked me, he was like, hey, have you ever been to Alaska? I'm like, nope. You want to go? Yeah, sure, let's go. And we went on this excursion. We were riding ATVs, and it was with a group of people. And so we were just talking, and there was a lady there with her daughter. I think she had a couple daughters that were with her, and so we were just talking in this group of people, and so she was asking things about my family, and I said, well, just this past year, my wife had passed away, and so, well, how old was she? And so we talked, and she goes, you know what? Sounds like she's lived a lot more years, and a lot more fruitful and full years than people who have lived into their 80s. And I think looking at that, it was kind of a
glass half full, not half empty.
I was looking, going, you know what? Instead of, yes, there are things that she had dreams to continue, dreams of writing and doing a devotional and writing all of that. One of the great things about that, I'm able to help continue fulfill some of the dreams that she had. Our daughters are able to currently, and I'm seeing it, they're living out some of the dreams that Marybeth had that wanted to do. They're able to do that right now. If we look at the hope that we have in situations, on the bright side, we're seeing the boys that are continuing on Eddie's legacy and walking into those steps. We don't have to try and live up to anyone. That's not the goal, or that's not it. But being able to take something and say, you know what, even in my life, I haven't gotten over the loss of Marybeth. I haven't, moved on. I don't like that term of, you moved on.
And you say the whole term of moving on, it doesn't work like that. And it kind of is like what I thought of was a book, and you have chapters, and yes, there's a new chapter, but the chapter, you don't just rip out the next chapter. You don't read one chapter, then rip it out and throw it away. It's still in the book. It's still there.
Yeah.
So you turn the page, and but it's coming with you because you remember everything you just read. So if that makes sense to you, you don't move on from it. You keep moving.
Right.
Move is in there, but it's moving with that.
Yeah.
And
those are situations, and that is kind of how our story of how we got to this point of both experiencing loss. I didn't know your family, but because we were both in churches and serving on staff of the churches in the same town, knew about that morning. I received a text message from one of the other guys that I was on staff with, letting me know that, hey, I don't know if you had heard this, but this happened. Instantly, for me and the girls, our heart went out to you guys, knowing I feel horrible for what they're walking through, because while we're still kind of in a fog, they're just starting the fog.
Yeah.
And
so you kind of hear about people, or people walking through situations like that, and it almost like it grabs you and pulls you right back to chapter 1, you know, or whatever chapter that is for you, or just pulls you right back to the very beginning, and you're just like, oh. And you just, like, for me, I just stop and pray, okay, God, be present for them right now. Be present, because they need to see you in whatever their circumstance is, whatever that is. It can be death, but it could be that they just got fired. It could be that, not necessarily a spouse, but maybe a parent, or whatever it is, that they would feel your presence, and that, so that's kind of the hope that we hope we're, be able to.
I think for me, I have found that I have become more thankful and grateful in my life, in walking through. And so walking through that and going, God, you never know from day to day what life can hold when you've walked through these situations. And today we're gonna continue on in future episodes and talk more about our story, but also would love to hear about yours. And so whether that's leaving a comment, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on a podcast, you can go right in the comments on that YouTube channel, leave some comments on maybe some things that you're struggling with. What have you experienced when you've walked through loss, and where you're at? And if you're listening to the podcast, go to our website, thefamilyblend.com. We'd love to hear your comments. You'll also find a link that you can ask questions, and you can email us, and we would love to hear from you. This is about us sharing and kind of being open and transparent, so that it can possibly help you. Not every one of these, you may do something completely different from us, and that's totally cool, because everybody's journey of loss looks different. Don't try and compare yourself and where you're at to someone else's loss. We all go through different types of grieving and different types of things. But I would ask you, what is your next step? What are you going to do? We talked about our goal is to inspire people to take the next step after loss, take the next step through life, and then take the next step in love. Maybe you're facing a relationship that's going through some rough patches, and you're almost trying to find your balance, saying, what is going on with this? We want to help you take that next step. So what is it for you? For us, at that point, when we right then experienced that loss, and I remember just holding the girls and just praying over their mind, saying, God, protect their mind, protect their heart, so that this doesn't stop them from moving forward in their relationship with you, but also their relationships with others, and with future dreams and hopes. I want them to continue moving forward. I will always remember that time. I don't remember everything that I prayed, because it was just an autopilot thing of going, this is where I'm at right now, and I need to take that next step. What would you say to someone that is maybe stalled out because they faced that? What did you find was your next next step at that point, and what would you encourage someone else to do?
Well, I mean, definitely for me there was just no question to look up, look at God and say, okay, and be transparent with Him. He sees you, He knows, but He wants you to identify that, and then hand it over to Him. It was not the easiest thing to do, especially when you just want to pull everything in and act like you got it. You're good and you're solid, and you don't have to be. You can hand it over, and you can show emotion.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was, I didn't necessarily get to say goodbye to Eddie, but I think that he, in a way, allowed God to use him that day by not just speaking to our church at the time, but also speaking to me through, crazy as it is, through scripture that he had highlighted on his iPad. It was, it was 1 Peter 5:10, and it was, I'm going to paraphrase this, but you can grieve for a little while, but then I need you to pick yourself up and move forward. And that is what I think that what I kept living by, and it was, he had that highlighted before, and he used his iPad that morning. So I know it wasn't in his, it wasn't necessarily in his speaking notes, but I truly believe he had that highlighted because God gave that to him so that I would see it later and know that it's okay to grieve and to be sad and to not be, confident in what was going to be next. But trusting God was huge for our family.
Yeah, and that later in that scripture that after a little while, He will restore you. And I think that is maybe where you might be at, that you feel like there's not hope, but God will restore you. He will restore your situation. It may look different than what you had hoped it would look, but that doesn't mean that you should lose hope. We want you to take a look at the website. Go to thefamilyblend.com. You can find more information about us, about our story, and all we're doing is just trying to be transparent and be open. We're not coming to you that we have all the right answers. That's far from it. And sometimes we're just trying to figure it out as we go. But we want to help you. And one thing that we've noticed is that when you have someone else that has walked through those circumstances, you can be open and you feel like you have something to grab onto, going, if they did this, then I think I might be able to make it as well. So we'd love to hear from you. If you have comments, any way that we can help you, we would love to do so. Thanks for joining us today.